Well, good morning, YouTube. All right, guys, bike week it's starting soon. We've only got a few days until it's time to leave, and I've got to get Goliath ready to go. Unfortunately, this poor guy has been sitting here since the day we parked him. We came home from Lone Star back in November. I want to say that was what, like November 7th or 8th or something like that. We pulled him in here, parked him, completely ignored him for the most part. Now, Katie and I have come up a few times and we've cleaned inside and like remade the bed last couple of days. So a lot of that's ready to go, but really need to pre-trip them. I'm hoping it'll even start. I haven't started them since we parked them. Hopefully the batteries are good. We're about to find out. All right, so before I fire him up, I did a quick check on oil, coolant, and even power steering. I am down a little bit on oil, but it's well within the safe zone. Definitely need to add about a couple ounces of power steering fluid to it, but I don't think I have any here with me. Coolant's good, so we're gonna go ahead and give it a try and fire them up. Well, what was I thinking? I knew he'd start. Goliath never lets me down, ever. Such a good truck. Awesome truck. All right, guys, so I'm gonna let him run for a while, make sure, get that alternator going, let the airbags air up, go through and check all that stuff. I'm gonna do a brake safety check on it. And once it's aired up too, I'm gonna crawl underneath it and do all my brake adjustments. So we got a little bit more clearance down there. I do have one leak I wanna fix at a rear axle. I don't know if I'm gonna get to that today, but we're definitely gonna get it done. Still got a bunch of tools and stuff that I've been using that I've got to get put back in here. And the inside of the trailer is a little bit of a mess at the moment. Lift is down. Michaela, Grayson, and I came up the other day and we stocked our Love Jugs inventory upstairs. But I think I can go ahead and raise this lift back up, clean and organize everything in here. That way we can load the motorcycles in, well, the Harley and the street legal snowmobile. That way that's done. We've only got like 3 days until we leave. 4 days. Today's Wednesday. We leave on Sunday. Leaving on Sunday. So yeah, a few more days. Of course, this kid thinks he's a monkey. He's got to climb every time he's in here. All right, guys, so it is actually the next afternoon. Believe it or not, yesterday we did the opening intro, and then Grayson and I started cleaning up the trailer and organizing and getting rid of trash and just putting stuff where it belongs. Got the lift back up, the floor's cleaned. Before we knew it, it was dark. We didn't get anything actually done on Goliath. So back up here today, it's afternoon. I had a bunch of errands to run this morning. It's like 1 o'clock, 1:30. It's way later than I wanted it to be. But we're gonna get something done. As you can see, I disconnected the truck and the trailer because without the weight of the trailer on it, I can get the airbags up a lot higher on Goliath. Gives a little bit more room for my fat ass to fit underneath there to do the brake adjustment and the greasing. So I've got the grease gun down there already. I got my flashlight, my 9/16 wrench. I even brought a tape measure, so I'm gonna measure a couple things while I'm down there. So now I've got to get down there, crawl in between these tandems and make these adjustments. Get this greasy, nasty part out of the way. All right, so I know a lot of you have seen me do brake adjustments before, but I know there's a lot of new people here as well. You may not have seen how we do this on a big truck. So as of right now, I've got the wheels chalked so the vehicle cannot roll, and I have released the parking brake so that the brakes are not engaged. The next step is to make the adjustment in the slack adjuster. So I'm gonna flip the camera around so you can see the little slot I gotta look at. So if you look right there, the little slot, you see that gap that's in between the brake pad and the drum? Right there at the bottom, the rusty part is the drum. Above it is the actual brake shoe, the brake material. You see there's a little gap. So what I'm gonna do is turn this adjustment screw right there with a 9/16 wrench until that gap right there completely disappears, till the shoe is actually touching the brake drum. And then I will back off that adjuster, maybe a quarter to a half turn, just to give it clearance. That way there's a less of a delay when you apply the brakes. And I will do that on all 6 sets of brakes. Now this part can be sometimes challenging because there's like a lock in there that you've got to push in. Sorry, it's hard to keep the camera still. There we go. See, I got the lock in, now the wrench on. Now I can make my adjustment. When that lock is out, you cannot adjust. The nut will not turn. That way it doesn't come out of adjustment when you're driving down the road. All right, after the adjustment's made, just hit it with a little bit of grease just until it squeezes out. All right, while I'm down here, I went ahead and greased up both of my universal joints and the slip yoke on the rear drive shaft. Well, it's a nasty job, but somebody's got to do it. All right, so drive line is completely greased. All the brake slack adjusters are greased. The steering is greased. Upper lower ball joints are greased. The steering shaft is greased. Everything is greased except for the rear brake S-cam shafts. I started to do the one on this side and it won't take grease. So I'm gonna get down there with a ratchet, see if I can't pull the Zerk fitting out, and hopefully I can clear the fitting, and maybe that's the only problem. A lot of work. All right guys, so luckily that Zerk fitting came apart pretty easy, and I cleaned it all out and it worked fine. The others didn't give me a problem. So as far as greasing goes, we're done. Now I still need to check the fluids of both differentials and the transmission, but I didn't bring the fluids to top them off with me today. I meant to and I forgot to. So that's gonna have to wait. But one other thing I wanted to do before we go any further is fix this rear axle seal right here. I don't know if any of you guys noticed it, but at the end of the season last year, as we were heading out towards Texas, I noticed a couple of times that wheel would get a little greasy on the inside. We'd hit a truck wash, it would clean it off, and I'd monitor it. And, you know, another 1,000 miles later or so, I'd see a little bit of grease on the inside of the wheel again. It wasn't major. I mean, it looked like a lot because centrifugal force threw everything, but it wasn't a major leak. Now, I took the cap off and I looked at it, and I can see there's one bolt that's a little bit oily. So I believe we got some leakage right around that bolt, and you can see the wetness up in here. Now, I still drove the truck home because I could tell that it wasn't enough of a fluid loss to be a real issue. And I did check the fluid about midway through that trip in the final drive, and it was all still good. So before I check it this time, I'd rather go ahead and fix this because we are going to lose a little bit by taking this axle out. All right, so you just basically got those 8 bolts that hold that around, and that whole axle shaft will slide out of there. So we're going to clean up those surfaces, put a new seal on it, and slide it all back together. And hopefully that'll fix the problem. And then when I come back up with the fluids, I can top everything off. Now, normally you lose a little bit when you take this off, but what I've done is Goliath is parked and he's pitched towards the driver's side because the parking lot we're in is pitched towards the driver's side. And then I drove this wheel up onto some 2-inch thick blocks. So we're pitched just enough that the fluid that's in there is going to want to run the other direction. We're still going to lose some, but that'll minimize how much we lose. This shouldn't take very long. Got my socket ready. We're going to hammer it now. I'm going to use my hubcap to catch what oil I do lose. So you can see that on 2 of them, the entire stud came out instead of just the nut coming off. And you see it's got these little like conical wedges in there. They came out with it. And the one that looks like it's leaking, looks like that wedge is broken or partially missing. So if you look in there, you can see that there's part of a wedge on that side, but it doesn't look like it's all there on that side, as in compared to like the others. You see they're almost flush on all the rest of them. Now, the last time that this was out was back in 2019, I want to say. We were on our way home from Laconia, and we shredded the power divider in this front drive. So, side of the road, we had to have a shop fix it. It took a few days, but they had this all apart, so I don't know whether maybe they lost something or broke something. Either way, that was only about 5 years ago, so this shouldn't be leaking at this point, but I don't know, maybe they did something a little bit sloppy. I'm going to grab a hammer, tap it loose, and we'll see if we can't fix it. Well, I said this should have been easy, but the way those little conical spacers fit in there, it's got kind of a wedge on it, and I'm trying to tap with a hammer, but with the wheel in place, I don't really have room to get a good swing. So what I really need here, and I don't have one, is a slide hammer that we could hook it over the back edge and then just pull straight out. But gotta figure something else out. Just had to keep working at it a little bit more, and I finally got it to break loose. Good thing is, it looks like my interior gasket surface is in pretty good shape. And I'll just have to pull this out enough to clean it up, reseal it, put it back together. So I'm just gonna wait for that oil to finish draining so I don't make any more of a mess than I need to. All right, so I got both of my gasket surfaces cleaned up pretty well, and I'm gonna use this Permatex Right Stuff to seal everything back up. This isn't really a silicone, it's more of a true rubber gasket. I just think it works better than silicone in most cases, and it really only needs to sit up for about 1 minute. I usually give it a little bit more than that, just to skin over, you put it together, and you can put things directly in use. It's not like an RTV type sealant where you've got to let it sit for 24 hours to fully cure. This stuff works right away. Now, we're not going anywhere, so it's still going to get time to sit, but I just like it better. It's a little bit more expensive. This little can is like $14. And the problem with it is I never use all of it at once. I end up throwing away the last quarter to a third of a can because it never gets used. All right, on reassembly, I've got the sealant on there. I just put the 2 studs that came out in first, but I didn't tighten them down all the way, just enough to get those conical pieces to set in there to help center the whole thing. Now I'm gonna go back and put in my other conical pieces, and then the nuts, and then just kind of tighten it down gently in a sequence. All right, so not without 100% complication, but we got it done. And it's getting late, guys. It's about 4 o'clock now, and I've got to go get cleaned up. I've got a dinner date tonight. Katie and I are gonna go over to Mike and Alicia's house, and I think I'm already gonna be late as it is. So Mike and Alicia, when you guys see this, you'll know why. Things didn't go smoothly. But I'm gonna clean up my tools and I'm gonna get out of here, guys. We'll do another video tomorrow with the rest of the stuff that we're doing on this. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And until the next time I see you, keep those engines running.